100 points in the Premier League, the impossible dream of so many sides, from Chelsea's sides from 2004 to 2006, Manchester United's 1999 treble-winning team, Arsenal's Invincibles, even last season's Liverpool. Many tried, but only one succeeded. This is GOATS, the greatest of all teams, with Manchester City 2017-18, Pep Guardiola's Centurions. This season marked Pep Guardiola's second for Manchester City. His first was pretty anticlimactic, and many were even considering if the Catalan manager would even taste victory in the Premier League with City. However, before the season began, he had a complete overhaul as he looked to re-establish a little bit of dominance after last season they placed below Chelsea and Spurs. The citizens bid farewell to the likes of Joe Hart, who had fallen out of favour with Guardiola, the likes of Willy Caballero, Pablo Zabaleta, Jesus Navas, Samir Nasri, and of course Jadon Sancho, who went off to Borussia Dortmund. City then invested heavily in their squad, bringing in midfielder Bernardo Silva from Monaco for just over £40 million and spent over £150 million on some much-needed defensive players such as Ederson and defenders Kyle Walker, Danilo and Benjamin Mendy. Pep tended to set up as a 4-1-4-1 or an attacking 4-3-3, and the whole aim was having dominating possession, using passing triangles to move the ball and constant movement, and it worked with some key players. In midfield, the creativity of David Silva and Kevin De Bruyne paired with the pace of the likes of Leroy Sané and Raheem Sterling, and of course the ruthless goal scoring of Sergio Aguero up front, meant that Guardiola was blessed with some amazing talent that were able to flourish under his style of play. Now, thanks to Pep Guardiola's signings, it meant that he had 5 attacking strong players and also 5 defensive players, which meant that he always had enough players in the final third while staying defensively strong. Thanks to the fullbacks like Mendy, Fabian Delph and of course Kyle Walker, it meant that they were able to occupy a variety of positions on the pitch, and along with the centre-backs, City's defence was looking pretty good. And speaking of defence, their defensive midfielder Fernandinho was an absolute perfect fit. Now, he was somebody that provided so much solidity in an attacking-minded arrangement, and he could withstand any opposition pressure, which meant he was a vital cog in the machine. This meant that Guardiola now had a solid team, and they got off to a flying start in the Premier League. They won their opener, however, they did then draw their second game against Everton. It was a really frustrating game and actually saw Kyle Walker get sent off in his home debut. However, the team shook it off and Guardiola said they would improve, and he kept on his promise because improve they did, and Manchester City then went on to have an 18-game winning streak. Yes, 18 games. And by the end of September alone, this saw them have 5-0 thrashings of both Liverpool and Crystal Palace, and they hammered Watford 6-0. Guardiola and his team then travelled to London for arguably their biggest test yet, as they faced last season's champions Chelsea, and would you believe it, City got the win thanks to a Kevin De Bruyne goal. This was more than just a 1-0 win. Yep, 3 points in the bag, great, but this was such a massive statement from Manchester City and Guardiola. It proved to the rest of the league that they were there and they meant business. And would you believe it, the goals and the wins, they continued as they also got victories over Arsenal and local rivals Manchester United. Now, the 18-game winning streak did come to an end on New Year's Eve, as they had to settle for going into 2018 with a 0-0 draw against Crystal Palace. However, they did still have a 14-point cushion, and by this point they'd already broken a few records already. City had already achieved the most consecutive Premier League victories in a single campaign and the most consecutive Premier League wins overall, records that were previously held by Chelsea and Arsenal. It was around this time of the season that Guardiola was obviously quizzed by the media about whether they could rival Arsenal's invincible season, but Guardiola was pretty realistic and he just said that he doesn't think that they can go unbeaten, and in my opinion he kind of jinxed it for them because it was in January where they faced their first defeat, and that loss was against Liverpool, who wanted to get a little bit of revenge over Manchester City, and that they did at Anfield. Now, at the end of the first half it was 1-1, but in the second half, in just 10 minutes, Liverpool managed to score 3 goals thanks to their famous front 3. Although City did manage to get back 2 goals, it just wasn't enough and they did have to admit defeat. However, despite no longer being unbeaten, they still had a 15-point difference at the top of the table, and they had a whopping 50-goal difference. Now, also in January, we saw the arrival of Aymeric Laporte. He came in from Atletico Bilbao to Manchester City for over £50 million and actually broke Manchester City's transfer record. Now, of course, after the loss, the Blues bounced back with back-to-back wins. They did then draw at Burnley. However, in true Manchester City style, of course, they bounced back again, and it was against Leicester as they managed to beat them with 4 amazing goals from Sergio Aguero. Now, this thrashing of the Foxes was the final time that Manchester City played in the Premier League in February. However, they were 16 points clear at this point, and they were just a few more wins away from that Premier League title. After completely and utterly dismantling Arsenal in a League Cup final, they then played them again a few days later, and of course, beat them again 3-0. Now, at this point, the Premier League, Pep Guardiola's first Premier League title, was really and truly within his reach, and an opportunity arose in April for them to win that title at the Etihad Stadium in a Manchester derby. I mean, could it have got any better than that? Now, prior to the Manchester derby, City had suffered a loss in the Champions League against Liverpool, so this meant that Guardiola rested the likes of Kevin De Bruyne, Sergio Aguero, Gabriel Jesus, and had Raheem Sterling leading the line. Now, despite resting a few key players, City was still by far the better team in the first half as they led 2-0. However, in the second half, United did seem to wake up a little bit with Paul Pogba getting 2 goals and defender Chris Smalling, which meant that they put an end to City's hopes of beating Manchester United and being crowned champions. However, despite the bump in the road, City then had another opportunity to get a little bit closer to that Premier League title in a game against Spurs. City, of course, were victorious as they beat Spurs 3-1, and all they needed was a little bit of luck. The following day, Manchester United played West Brom, and they needed West Brom to get a win. Now, West Brom were 20th, complete bottom of the league, but they managed to do it and they beat Manchester United 1-2, and this meant that Pep Guardiola finally got his first Premier League trophy. After a night of some extreme celebrating, City and Guardiola then refocused as they had just 5 games remaining and had 87 points in the bag, meaning that surely they should be able to get those 100 points. And it's safe to say they never looked back from that moment. They had back-to-back wins over Swansea and West Ham, and of course they did have a draw against Huddersfield, but they then got a 3-1 victory over Brighton, which meant that they went into the final day of the season with 97 points. They played Southampton, and it is safe to say that City did it in dramatic fashion. They left it until the 94th minute when a long-range pass from De Bruyne found Jesus, who steered the ball over the keeper and into the net, sparking celebration across the blue side of Manchester and all over the world. They were Premier League champions with 100 points, so it is safe to say they swept up quite a few awards. 5 of Manchester City's players were named in the PFA Team of the Year. Leroy Sané, he got the PFA Young Player of the Year. Pep Guardiola was crowned as the Premier League Manager of the season, and Kevin De Bruyne actually managed to make it into the UEFA Team of the Year. And of course, let's not forget all of those records that Manchester City broke. Shall I reel them off? There are actually 15. Manchester City got most points, most goals, most total wins in a Premier League season, the biggest winning margin in a Premier League season of 19 points, most consecutive Premier League victories, earliest title win with 5 matches to go, the highest goal difference in a Premier League season with +79, most consecutive away wins, most away wins in general at 15, most away points, that's 48, most opponents beaten, having beaten all other 19 Premier League teams, fewest minutes trailed, biggest share of away possession, that was against Everton at 82.13%, most successive Manager of the Month awards 4 times in a row for Pep, and quickest to 100 goals. What an amazing list of achievements. Premier League champions, 100 points, and all of those records absolutely phenomenal. Now, despite being one of the greatest teams in the Premier League, there were still a few doubters, a few haters maybe, who were questioning City and their ability to maybe keep up with other teams that had been competing at the top of the Premier League for maybe a little bit longer. However, what this win did was obviously cement Manchester City, this Manchester City team from this season at least, as one of the greatest of all time, if not the greatest. but it also brought on a new dawn, a new era of a new rivalry. Now, this was Liverpool and Manchester City. The following season, they did battle all season, and it was Manchester City that, of course, came out on top as they won the domestic treble. And just last season, again, it was Manchester City and Liverpool doing battle at the top of the tree, and it's just left everybody else below them just feebly trying to keep up with them. They are miles and miles ahead of other teams, and it's such an amazing thing to see. It was an amazing achievement for the club, the players, Guardiola, everybody associated with Manchester City. It was a feat that had never been done before, and although Liverpool did get close last season, who is to say if we will ever see a team like this achieve 100 points again?